Hey there, I'm Aisha Formansky for Beaducation.com, and I'm going to show you how to make my winged heart pendant today. Now this was a pendant I made. I was inspired by our winged blanks, which are awesome. I'm going to show you how to engrave and also rivet today with our rounded head rivets. But let's remember one thing, we're going to be engraving, so safety comes first. Get out those safety glasses and that dust mask, and let's get started. Here are the tools and materials you'll need for today's project. A traditional riveting hammer or chasing hammer. I actually prefer a chasing hammer for riveting, so that's what we're going to use in today's class. Screw down hole punch, chain nose pliers, bent nose pliers, a heavy duty flush cutter, a Sharpie marker for darkening the impressions, liver of sulfur, and a pro polish pad to remove your oxidation. A bench block, a brass mallet, small design stamp, letter stamp, engraving tool with the small and large grinding bit. And as I mentioned earlier, don't forget your safety glasses and your dust mask. The materials that you'll need are one heart and a pair of wings. We carry a variety of metals in these blanks. Also, 2 jump rings for attaching your chain, 2 rounded head rivets, I've chosen aluminum, and also a piece of scrap copper sheet to practice engraving. I'm going to begin by engraving my 2 silver-filled wings. These silver-filled wings are sterling silver clad over copper. Now we're going to use that to our benefit. With our main lines here, I'm going to engrave down to expose the copper underneath. I like to use a permanent marker to plan out my design. So let's do the second wing here. My Sharpie marker here, I'm just going to go in. There we go. Now I'm ready to engrave. I've inserted the smallest grinding bit here into the engraver, and I'm holding the tool with the power button right near my thumb. Now make sure you're working on a nice sturdy table and your piece is stable. I'm going to support my piece and then start to engrave. Now if you see, I'm just going up and down just like a pen or pencil. Before I switch to the next bit, I just wanted to remind you of a couple of things. Now, when using this small bit and engraving on the wing, you're actually on the side, the little side of that little bit there. And I'm pushing quite firmly because I'm removing the top surface, the sterling silver clad, to expose that copper. So you really want to give it a little muscle. Just like that. I went back in and engraved a little bit more on those main lines of my wing to really expose the copper underneath. So now I'm going to change the bit to the larger grinding bit to do the fine lines of my feathers. Take a chain nose plier, get a nice solid grip on that bit, pull it out. Take my new bit here, put it into the tool, and take my chain nose pliers, press down, just make sure it's nice and firm in there. Position my tool again with the power button right at my thumb. Then I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to very lightly create those fine lines. And now I'm going to continue with each section all the way down the wing. I've completed the engraving on the two wings here, and I've stamped an R on the heart. If you'd like more information on stamping, you can pop on over and watch our free class, Stamping on Metal. Now let's get started riveting. The first step to riveting is creating the holes for the rivets. Now I'm going to come in with my fine point Sharpie marker here. I use this all the time. And I'm going to place the markings where I'm going to put those rivets. Excuse me, those holes, and then the rivets. There we go, that's even enough. I'm going to use the screw down hole punch to create the holes. Now I'm using the smaller end, which is a 1.6 millimeter hole. I'm going to take my heart here, place it into the tool. And with my fingers, screw the punch down. Now, once I feel a little resistance, I'm going to continue screwing the punch down until you feel it break through and loosen up. And then you're going to back that punch out. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. There, it loosened up, back it out. And there we have our two holes. So here at Beaducation, we're all about education. So I'd like to show you something that happened during that last take. If you look here on the right side, can you see those rings? Now that happened when I made the first hole. What happened was, as I lifted the pin up, the blank came up and touched the top of the tool. And as I rotated out, the whole blank rotated and was marred by the tool on the top. So what you want to do to avoid that is hold that blank still and in place, and then back the screw out. So I'm going to go make a new one, and this one will become something else in the future. As you can see, I've placed the wings down on my table here and placed the heart on top. And I've done this so that I can position my wings and plan out where I'd like them. So let's see here. I think that looks pretty nice. So I'm going to come in with my fine tip Sharpie marker one more time, and through the original hole in the heart, I'm going to place a little dot down onto my wing. And now I'm going to punch that hole in that wing. I'm threading my heart and my wing onto my rounded head rivet here. Placing these face down on my bench block. Now I'm going to want to cut my rivet down to about 0.5 millimeter to 1 millimeter. And you might say, Aisha, how is it that I'm going to get a consistent cut every single time? Well, I've come up with a little way. This is a 24 gauge blank, which is roughly 0.5 millimeter in thickness. And you're going to use this by placing it over your piece here. We've now made a little sandwich I'll show you. And this will allow you to cut the same length every time. Take my heavy duty flush cutter here. Cover that cut. Remove my little tile. Now I have about 1/2 millimeter of material remaining. Come in with my chasing hammer. And just giving it light taps all around. The metal will start to splay out. And now I'm going to do my second side. Now I'm going to rivet the second wing. As you've noticed, I'm doing one at a time. And the reasoning behind that is, if you punch all 4 holes in the very beginning, 99% of the time when you go to rivet the second side, the holes aren't going to line up anymore. So you're going to want to do it one at a time. So let's place that mark. Now I'm going to punch that hole. I've threaded the pendant and the wing onto the rounded head rivet here and placed it face down. I'm going to come back in with my 1/2 millimeter tile and my heavy duty flush cutter. Make that cut. Remove that tile. I'm going to come back in with my chasing hammer and continue riveting the 2 rivets. Now these rounded head rivets are aluminum, so it doesn't take a lot of effort here. It's just very light tapping. I think that's pretty good. There we go. I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about these little tiles that I made. There are 2 samples here. This is the sample that we just made with the 1/2 millimeter, and this is a sample using a 1 millimeter or 18 gauge blank. Now these are rough estimates. 18 gauge is actually a little bit more than a 1 millimeter, and the 24 gauge is a little bit more than a 5 millimeter, but as long as you stay consistent, your rivets will be the same every time. So this is what it looks like when you use a 1 millimeter length. And this is what the rivet looks like when you use 1/2 millimeter. The rounded head rivets can be left just as is, or if you'd like, you can add a little teeny design stamp to them. So let me show you how you do that. Like I said earlier, these rounded head rivets are aluminum, so they're very soft. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my chasing hammer in, and I'm actually going to splay out the metal to about 5 millimeters, 6 millimeters. Making a nice little flat landing for my little design stamp. We have a variety of teeny design stamps that you can use for stamping on the top of your rivet. I'm going to use the star here. If you look closely at my pendant, my rivets came out a little smaller than 6 millimeter. I'd say they're about 4.5 millimeter. One more thing is, when you're flattening these out, you want to make sure to leave a little bit of metal for your stamping. Take that design stamp here, place it on top of my rivet, and with my 1 pound brass mallet, give it one nice whack. Maybe 2 on that one. Next, let me show you how to oxidize this piece and finish it up. To finish the wing pendant, you have a few different options. On the top pendant here, I used liver of sulfur to darken the whole piece and then went back in with a pro polish pad and cleaned it up. Now the liver of sulfur won't attach itself to aluminum, so you're going to want to go in with a Sharpie marker and darken the impressions that way. Now on the piece that we just finished, I'm going to go in with my Sharpie marker and darken the impressions from the stamp. I'm going to come in with my Pro Polish pad, buff up the tops of those rivets. Now for this pendant, I really like the bright wings, and I really like how the copper is showing through, so I think I'm going to leave it just like that. So to finish, you're going to punch a hole on both sides of the wings, attach a jump ring, and your chain. And there it is. Enjoy your pendant!